The weirdest part about this whole interview is that it only lasted 18 minutes. 18 minutes. You gotta factor in that half of those minutes go to Dana Bash because she's really wordy, so that leaves 9. Probably Tim Walz jumps in for a couple of minutes. It's plausible that Kamala Harris only spoke for 7 minutes in the entire interview.
This is exactly what happens when you try to hide your weaknesses as a presidential candidate for the last 40 days by avoiding interviews instead of just facing it and getting used to it. It blows up in your face. And in this video, we're going to look at how bad Kamala Harris bombed this interview. And where we are going to start in this interview is probably what's on most people's mind. What are you going to do on day one? Go.
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. And I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
Just look at her face, right? I have the frame frozen right now. Look at her. She looks like she, I don't know, took a vacation around the world and was drinking the entire time and just got back home yesterday. You guys ever go out of town, right? Have you ever gone out of town on a vacation? You get back and then you have to go to work the next day. That's not a great day to do an interview. She looks like she was doing something yesterday. So that's bad on her, because this is all about her selling who she is to the American people. Because her energy isn't there, her answers aren't very clear. And again, she's supposed to be making the case. If you ask Donald Trump, hey, what's the first thing you're going to do on day one? Close the border, drill, baby, drill, bring down inflation. Like, it's very clear. Now, will it all happen on day one? Probably not. But we are clear on what he wants to do. Her answer right there was not very clear. It was lackluster at best. And if you're an independent, you're on the fence, you're like, I don't know who to support. Already the interview is starting off on the wrong foot.
As vice president, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
Northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. Mm-hmm. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. Mm-hmm. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, He told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill.
Okay, Madam Vice President, let's say you're correct. It's Donald Trump's fault that that bill was killed. Let's put it on him. What about the last 3.5 years, though? What's your answer on that? How do you just sidestep that entire time? Like, you guys came into office in 2021. You opened the border to record levels in 2022 and 2023. What's your excuse? Why did it take until you announced that you were going to be the nominee for president on the Democratic side for Joe Biden to issue executive orders on the border? Why is that? And so what this comes down to me that I'm seeing already is there is zero separation between her and Joe Biden, and she's not willing to budge on that. That's number one. Number two, she's continuing to gaslight everyday Americans who have been negatively impacted by the open border. We're talking people in the inner cities. We've seen these clips, these man on the street interviews in Chicago, in New York. You've got the mayor of New York acknowledging and saying this city is going to crash if we don't get a handle on this immigration because they're draining our money. But of course, she's not going to acknowledge that, right? Just like she won't acknowledge this.
When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
Okay, so she finally states out of her own mouth that she is not for fracking, and she's never been for fracking since 2020. The problem is that CNN came out and fact-checked her on that.
So she ended her 2020 presidential run in December 2019. The only debate she participated in 2020 was the general election debate with then Vice President Mike Pence. And I went over the transcript of that debate tonight. Nowhere in there does she make clear that she had abandoned her previous support for a fracking ban. Rather, she repeated that Joe Biden, the head of the Democratic ticket at the time, would himself not ban fracking. Maybe other people feel differently. I certainly did not hear anywhere in there Kamala Harris saying that she personally had abandoned her previously expressed 2019 view. Rather, again, she was speaking for Joe Biden.
Number two, and this is very glaring, if you live in Pennsylvania, nothing that she said up to this point has sold you to vote for her. Because you have to remember something. She is a career politician. She will lie until her face falls off, like in this clip.
Vice President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president.
Okay, guys. It's disrespectful at this point, right? I mean, we all saw what we saw. We know he's not fit to be commander-in-chief. We know this. We know it because where is he right now? He's on the beach somewhere, right? We just saw clips of this. He's on the beach. He's hanging out. He's enjoying his retirement. That's really what happened is they probably made a deal with him at the end of the day. You need to drop out of this race or we're going to hit you with the 25th Amendment. And he probably said, you know what? Fine, I'll drop out. But I don't want to hear you guys trying to remove me from office. And I'm going to ride out to the sunset in my own way, which is chilling on the beach and doing nothing. That's literally what he's doing right now. I believe the best move for her would have been to separate herself from Biden so that it could actually bring the whole statement of her saying everybody wants to turn the page. So she's not even her own person, which speaks to an issue I'm going to get into later in the video. But now what we're going to do is hear some of the reaction. Some of these people support Kamala Harris. And again, this is why I said she bombed this interview, because when you have people on your side criticizing you and exposing your weaknesses live, you have problems.
And to Frank's point, too, the value word, Chris, yeah, it is a cover up. I mean, I hate to say it. Just be authentic, be real. What the American people want, regardless of whether they're on the right, the left, the middle, little country, little rock and roll, gospel, R&B, they want authenticity, and they do want to know that the person who wants to be the commander in chief will put their interests first and change material conditions. Now, we can debate how material conditions can be changed through policy, and Chris, you were dead on. What are the principles that lead to policies to say your values haven't changed, but yet you running from Medicare for all? That don't make sense to me. When 60% of the American people are living paycheck to paycheck, and most of the American people, whether they are right, left, or in the middle, do need relief. Medically, they need relief. Financially, they need relief. So I know she has to walk a fine line because she is in the current administration, but she still, Chris, she has got to show how she would lead differently and how her leadership would lift poor and working class people in this country from all walks of life, even before we get into the politics of who's conservative, who's liberal, and who's progressive.
Perfect reaction, right? Listen, I am a very competitive person. Her interview does not lead me to believe this is truly a competitive fight. If that's how she's going to show up when it comes to the debate, you might as well just pack it in right now. Like, she needs to rise to the occasion, and she's not doing that. And the reason why she's not doing that, ladies and gentlemen, is because that's not who she is. There is a reason why back in 2019, she had no chance of becoming the president, let alone at least making it to Iowa. She got zero support, zero votes. There is a reason for that. If the Democrats can go back 3 years ago, they wouldn't be in this position to begin with. They would have definitely prepared someone else instead. She has a lot of weaknesses, and I think the biggest one right now that we see is she's not authentic with what she is saying, like what this top pollster said.
And I want to emphasize, because Nina is absolutely correct. It's not just authenticity. The number one value that Americans want right now out of their elected officials is the truth. They want someone they can trust, because that way they can address all these other issues about the budget, inflation, Medicare for all, whatever the policy is. If you don't trust them, if they're not getting the truth, then nothing else matters. And it doesn't come across as authentic. And she just said right there, yes, I'd appoint someone. That's symbolic. If I'm bipartisan or I'm partisan, but I want to show that I'm going to work with other people, I'm going to be specific. She had a chance right there to articulate that intellectual diversity is as important as any other measurement, but she did not. And I'm questioning now, I'm very careful about this, I'm questioning not just the authenticity, but the truthfulness of that answer right there.
You cannot fake authenticity. And what we saw there was an inauthentic person. The vice president says, my values haven't changed. And then subtext, however, every political position I've ever held to date has changed. You can't have it both ways.
And I would say that's my biggest takeaway that I'll get into at the end of the video. I can't fake this, just like she can't fake running for the president of the United States. It's either you are that person or you're not. And if you're not, it's okay. You know, that's why I truly believe they made a big mistake here. And I think Scott Jennings pointed it out here.
I was sort of watching this, holistically. What is she saying? What does she look like? What's on the screen? So at the beginning, when she's talking about Biden and their record, our screen said, this is called the Chiron, the headline at the bottom. It said, Harris stands by Biden administration economic record. She is making it clear that she will embrace and be a continuation of Biden's economic policy, his record, what they've done. She offered no remorse. If I were the Trump people, I would be salivating over the idea that that's how they are going to run the race. I don't believe it's tenable.
Let me go ahead and give you guys my final points or reactions from this interview. Overall, it was torture to watch this. Again, I told you I'm a competitive guy. I want her to bring it. I want her to show up. I want her to rise to the moment. Make this interesting. I really do believe that. Number one, she's not authentic. This is not who she is. She's not a presidential candidate. Okay. Again, there's a reason why they did not do an open convention. There's a reason why she wasn't part of the primary process. She was selected in a back room somewhere. That's what happened. Number two, it was only 18 minutes. And the video I played you at the beginning of this whole clip showed that, where she barely even spoke. She barely had time to elaborate on her answers because Dana Bash has to get her time in. Tim Walz got his time in. I mean, again, this is who we are going to have represent us in front of our foreign adversaries. The math does not make sense on this interview when it's only 18 minutes. And number three, which I think is the most damning thing that she did in this entire interview, which I believe will not sit well with people in these swing states, is that she offered zero separation from President Biden. Zero. People hate him for a reason. There's a reason why his poll numbers were terrible, and she is still not separating herself from him. And the problem with that is, if she doesn't do it, then she is not able to create a new image of what the future will look like if she becomes the president. Right now, that image is being dominated by what Trump is saying and what people have experienced over the last 3.5 years, and a little bit of what the propaganda machine has been working overtime for, to tell people that she is the party of joy. But that is not going to get votes. Okay, so overall, she bombed this interview. If I was in charge of her campaign, we failed on this one. That is my personal opinion. But what is yours? What do you guys think about this interview? What do you think of her energy? What do you think of how she answered the questions? How did she look? What do you think of the reactions that you heard, including mine? Put your answers and more in the comments section below. If you want to support the channel, you know what to do. Go to the link in the description below and grab yourself a t-shirt. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.